Oh, I don't know about that, but in any case, perhaps now is a good time to pivot because we do have a special guest here from Blocknative, and at the same time, Langers, I believe you have another call to jump onto. So Jasper and I will cover off the remaining bi-weekly topics towards the end of this call. It might end up being a bit of a long one, but I'm just now going to try and get Blair up to be able to speak. Fingers crossed that Twitter behaves for us, and then we've got half an hour or so chatting about all things Blocknative. So just bear with me as I sort this out, and Langers will catch you on the next call.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I'll talk to you again soon.
Cheers. Have a good one.
Bye.
And thank you, Monkey, for the great question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, sure.
In this little dead space we have while we're waiting for our next guest, if you have another question, I'd be happy to try to take a swing at it.
I was also wondering, like, I own a lot of RPL and I have some ETH on the side, and I'm still too afraid to like convert it into rETH because I'm just afraid of like the contract risk. So maybe you guys could speak to that, or like, what are the risks and what kind of steps you guys are taking to maybe communicate the lack of risk or whatever.
Hey, sorry to just jump in. We can take a note of that question and cover it off in 30 minutes. But just to make sure we have enough time to get through all the Blocknative topics, we've got Blair up here as a speaker. Can you hear us all right there?
I can. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yes, sir.
Cool. It's quite weird that you have to use mobile, not desktop.
Yeah,
very not Web3, honestly.
Maybe Elon will get this figured out by the end of the week.
It might be the single best thing he does. So, thank you for being here. Would you like to introduce yourself and introduce Blocknative?
Yeah, sure. Blair Marshall, so lead solutions engineer at Blocknative. Been with Blocknative for almost 2 years now, which feels like quite a long time in the crypto world. And worn many different hats on our growth team, our business development team, and do a lot of work with our customers and users, and help out with any sort of integration work that needs to be done. And then, so Blocknative, we are a Web3 infrastructure company. We have been operating in the space for about 4 years now. And we run a global set of nodes that provide real-time access to what we call the pre-chain layer, which is the mempool for Ethereum. And we support a variety of different chains, but for this conversation, we'll just keep it to Ethereum. And because we have this nice real-time view of the mempool, we have been able to kind of create and productize a bunch of different value-added services on top of that. One of those is our gas estimation. So we're pretty well known for our gas estimator. We think we have best-in-class gas estimation for providing the lowest bid you need to bid in order to get into the next block. And most gas estimators are looking at historic blocks, but obviously with a real-time view of the mempool, we can see the current view of and conditions for getting into the next block. So it's that competition for block space. And then another capability we have is our ability to simulate these real-time mempool events against current block state. So any sort of pending event we'll simulate that against the current state of the network, and we'll show you the internal transactions and net balance changes of what will happen if this transaction were confirmed on chain at the current state. And so those are kind of our core capabilities. We serve both traders and builders, and by builders I mean like application developers. On the traders side, they're mostly using our kind of simulation capabilities to watch for large net balance changes in liquidity pools and writing MEV bots based on those moves in liquidity pools. And then on the builder side, we support quite a number of different projects and applications. But if you go to an example would be a user like Curve. So if you go to Curve and you hit your kind of connect wallet button, that will pull up the connect wallet modal. So that modal is our Web3 onboard library. It's an open source library that we manage to connect software and hardware wallets, but the backend infrastructure is the interesting part. So, before Blocknative, if you were making a transaction on some project, you would have to go to Etherscan and hit refresh a million times until you feel like your transaction actually went through. And then using our infrastructure, we can provide Curve with the ability to provide its users, hey, like there's a pending transaction, your transaction, it's in the mempool, and then hey, the transaction's confirmed, so you're all set. So it provides like a richer UI UX experience. And yep.
A great metaphor that people often use to describe this sort of on-chain phase, this dark forest. So it sounds like a lot of what Blocknative does is sort of provide a light into the dark forest. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a pretty robust blog where we talk a lot about this. So encourage people to check out our blog. But yeah, that's one of our mottos, is to illuminate the dark forest. And then as the next evolution of what that means for Blocknative is we got interested in kind of the MEV boost world when that became a hot topic. And when we kind of assessed what will happen, post merge, the world we live in today, we realized that a relay is a trusted entity, but it requires low latency, high scale infrastructure, and that's what we've been working on for 4 years. That's what we kind of pride ourselves in. So I feel like we check the box on that one. And then as a builder, you need to have a great view of the mempool. You need to have relationships with searchers and traders. You need to be able to understand gas markets. You need to be able to simulate transactions. And we felt like that just checked a lot of the boxes of what we already do too. And so now we're kind of all in and going full speed ahead on being the best block builder and relay that we can be.
So the whole validator community has sort of come to grapple with this question of MEV and the entire paradigm of using MEV boost. And relays are a large part of that system. Can you talk a little bit about how the Flashbots relay has come to its dominance and how Blocknative has played its part in sort of creating alternatives?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for the Flashbot side of things, it's kind of important to understand the history a little bit and understand TradFi. And when I actually have this like kind of funny example of how to think about it. And so I'll start with that. So if you think about, like, if you're in the office and you're about to go get some lunch, you're going to go to your favorite spot around the corner, and you go to your favorite spot and it's packed, the line's out the door, and you're super hungry, and you're like, hey, I'd actually pay some money to skip this line and go right to the front. It's like, hey, that actually is kind of MEV right there. Like there's you're in an economic system where the ordering of events matters, and there's value to be extracted. And so that's kind of like
cut the line.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the world. That's the TradFi world, right? Like the reason that person has the ability to sell his spot at the front of the line is because they were first, they were fastest, and that as we've seen in TradFi, that leads to kind of a lot of centralizing forces, so to speak. And Flashbots recognized this in Ethereum, and they saw that this could happen to Ethereum and to the Ethereum ecosystem, and we could be headed down the same path of just re-implementing TradFi. And so instead of picturing the vertical line, now instead you get to your favorite spot and there's this horizontal line, right? You go inside, everyone's shouting at the cashier saying, hey, here's the bid, I'm willing to go to the front of the line. And then the cashier just lines people up based on who's willing to pay the highest bid. And so you didn't get to that horizontal line first. You got there, somewhere in the middle, and it didn't really matter. The quickness wasn't important. And so they changed the game. That's kind of how Flashbots changed the game for Ethereum. Instead of this latency game, we now have this game where whoever can write the most efficient smart contract, gas efficient smart contract, can bid the highest, and they can win that opportunity. And because they were able to do this, it creates a more kind of democratic effect. So like some random person somewhere in the world, they can work their what off and understand the EVM just as well as someone with a lot of resources, and they can compete directly with those folks. And so it's just a much more democratic way to do things. And then the next step of that was MEV boost and understanding that Flashbots shouldn't be the only one who can express different transaction orderings. And so they wanted to open up the aperture to any entity who wanted to participate in this expression of how they order transactions. And like I said before, we looked at this MEV boost world, and we thought that Blocknative could be a good player in this and important actor in this space. And so we've made the conscious decision to spend a lot of time and resources in this arena.
Great, thank you. The relays all right now serve a critical role because the ability to order transactions is actually quite powerful. As we see in the TradFi world, we end up creating a market worth trillions or billions to trillions of dollars in high frequency trading. The same thing is roundabout happening with maximal extractable value. And so if we end up in a situation where only one relay here processes all the block building, we end up creating an externality in which Ethereum, the protocol itself, is vulnerable to censorship. And a lot of hubla has been raised since the recent OFAC sanctions went live, and we saw a few relays decide to only accept sanction acceptable blocks. And because of this trend, we now have, I believe at time of speaking, 62% of blocks going through OFAC compliant relays. Does Blocknative have a stance on OFAC or even more broadly sanction compliance? And what do you think this says about the gradual progression about the Ethereum blockchain?
Yeah, good question. So the short answer is Blocknative. We filter on the to from address based on the OFAC SDN list. That's kind of the short answer of it. On the longer answer, when I think about this question, I like to kind of take a little bit of a step back, and I think about the MEV Boost marketplace. It is a marketplace where validators will express their opinions. They'll have feature requests. They'll have capabilities that they would like from relays and from builders. And the relays and builders will rise up to the occasion, and they'll create those features, and they'll build those. And Blocknative is no different. We're going to listen to the marketplace, and we're going to do our best to create as many of those features as possible and capabilities as possible. But at the end of the day, we're probably not going to be able to build every single one of them. And so to me, this is more of like a relay diversity question than censorship question. And so we need to encourage the ecosystem to have a diverse set of relays who are able to build features and capabilities that meet as many of the needs as validators as possible. And so it's like, how do we build this robust relay ecosystem, and how do we encourage more neutral relays. And so our stance on that side of things is we've taken two approaches here. One is we open sourced our relay, so if there are other actors out there who want to fork our relay and create their own relay, we encourage that, and we're even happy to speak with folks about our experience running a relay. And then part is sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just cut out for a bit
there. Sorry. So the second part is we wrote our own implementation of the MEV-Boost spec. So that's kind of our contribution, so to speak, to the diversity of relays. We're not just a fork of Flashbots. I think we're the only other one that's not a fork of Flashbots. I'm not entirely sure. And so we encourage validators to connect to as a diverse set of relays as possible. It wouldn't be a positive world if there was only one relay, whether that's Blocknative or Flashbots. And so we're listening to the market, and we're here to kind of encourage as many relays as possible. So it's not just the kind of the world we have now, where every relay is also a builder. So hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong answer. I believe there's a lot of different axes upon which different relays can sort of maximize what they aim to prioritize. For example, stability is one that's, we have a lot of disparity between the different relays, as well as OFAC compliance is another axis. So having these different implementations with different sort of baked in value propositions is just going to breed a more robust overall ecosystem. We have a couple of questions coming in from the Rocket Pool community on Discord. The first one is, will Blocknative just be a block builder on their own relay, or will they be competing as builders on other relays?
Yeah, great question. So far we are so I guess to back up and give a little more background. So we have one relay and one builder, and I don't know if everyone realizes this, but our builder actually we don't have any MEV in our builder at the moment. When we embarked on this journey, we knew that accepting bundles like Flashbots and Bloxroute would be a new capability that we'd have to add. So we're working on that and should have some exciting announcements shortly. So our builder currently is a mempool only builder, and we submit only to our relay. I think when we accept MEV bundles, we're going to have to decide internally whether it makes sense to also submit those blocks to third-party relays. I don't think there's consensus internally yet, but I think in the beginning it'll just be through our relay. We like to take the approach of learning as much as we can, and so we think there's a nice, easy chance for us to just use our relay to learn as much as we can, and then make the decision based on that data.
Great, thank you. And the second question is, does Blocknative offer only one relay or multiples? For example, some relays go by ethical/OFAC compliant / all types.
Yeah, so we just have the one relay right now. And I think in the short term, we'll continue to have one relay. But I think, again, as we listen to the market and what validators want, we're certainly open to taking a similar approach to like what Bloxroute has done, where we'll have multiple relays that express different transaction ordering preferences. So I think it's a little bit TBD.
It's a very interesting question that has divided a good amount of the crypto community. It's that, yes, there is this one axis upon which you can divide MEV, and that's OFAC / other sanction compliant or not. But then there's this other one that's, I think, a bit more important. That's the ethical versus non-ethical, and there's of course even more nuance in that. Whereas non-ethical might be sandwiches where users have essentially value extracted directly from them, and also more importantly, exploits. Some major exploits end up paying most of the value being taken to relays to make sure that they are the first person that's able to exploit it. And so in this respect, a majority of the value taken in this exploit ends up sent to the validator who is using the relayer. So obviously in this situation, the relayer is somewhat of a neutral entity, but do you or does Blocknative as a firm have any stances about the different types of MEV that can be extracted?
So I would say again the kind of the ethics of MEV can be a little bit of a challenging area to grapple. A lot of it is, I would say, most of it
That's for
is
sure.
pretty gray. So I think it's probably important to understand like the two sides of the debate of just particularly a sandwich transaction, right? So like the person gets sandwiched. It's pretty negative for the user that made that transaction in the mempool. But the one argument is, hey, they put their amount min as 0 or some really low number. So like they're expressing their preferences that they're willing to accept 0 as their trade. And then the flip side of that is like, hey, I don't think this user realized what they were doing when they made this swap. And so I can see both sides of it. Perhaps some of the onus is on the dApp itself to create a really easy UI UX experience so that doesn't ever happen and they know exactly what they're doing. So one of the capabilities that we do have there is our ability to simulate unsigned transactions. So we work with wallets to help their users simulate an unsigned transaction before they make it. And that shows the net balance changes of the addresses involved. And so for like an NFT transaction, if it were some malicious contract, it would show the net balance change of the NFT going to the malicious contract. And so the UI could show that, say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? You don't look like the owner of this address. Or the net balance changes of a swap could show that you're going to get, like very little or no other token in return for this swap. So I think part of the onus is on creating tools for better UI UX experience. But then on the builder side, I think again that it comes down to having a diverse set of builders who are willing to express all the different needs of validators and wants of validators. I don't know if it's never really a good thing if there's one entity or group that is deciding what is ethical and what is not. And so I think at Blocknative we're really pro-choice, and we want to create as much choice and opportunity for the validators to choose and to signal to the market what they want and what they need.
I think one of those highlights of the way Ethereum designed is the ability or the strong inclusion preference it has, in that if only a few or a small percentage of validators are running a non-censoring relayer, that few percent sort of creates a pretty high inclusion guarantee for people who want to get transactions in. We can have a pretty high amount of censoring going on, so to speak, and still allow the protocol itself to function for those users. It's sort of a testament to the good protocol design, and hopefully we as a community can take advantage of that by creating at least a decently diverse set of relayers in use. One type of relay that's often discussed in OFAC, or not in OFAC in terms of MEV, is a fair ordering relayer. one that might try to implement a time order sequence that is insured. Does Blocknative have any thoughts of fair ordering?
I don't know if we have strong thoughts on fair ordering. Again, I think if there's a group of validators that's what they want, then I think that will be created, and there will be a builder that will function that way. I'm not sure that I have necessarily seen that to date, but I don't see everything. Again, I think it comes back to the validator and them expressing what they need and what they want to the market, and then it's up to the builders and the relayers to decide to go out there and create that functionality and capability.
When Blocknative is sort of like going about its business plan, what does it consider its average validator clientele? Does it sort of try to target a specific user base of validators? So like we have the more established exchange types, or does Blocknative have a bit of a holistic view of trying to be suitable for all types of validators?
Yeah, so ideally, we would get every validator, right? Like, you want to get 100%, and hopefully we'll get there. But in the short term, we have to operate under certain constraints, and we have to make trade-offs on what functionality we decide to implement first, and some of that will really matter to validators, and some of that will matter less, or we're not using, or we're skipping some feature that some set of validators really wants, and so maybe they won't connect to us because of that. It's a constant evolving market, and we're always trying to listen to all the different actors in the space, and I think it's important to keep in mind that validators are a pretty diverse set of actors. There's like 450,000 total validators all across the world, and they all have very different needs and wants, and so it may be very difficult to get 100% of every single need and want for every single validator.
Yeah, absolutely. The Rocket Pool validator community is definitely different than Coinbase, for example. It's just a huge amount of values can be expressed through the blockchain as validators, which is absolutely what we want to see. So one of the things that differentiate the different relays that's important for validators is reliability. How does Blocknative's relay stack up in terms of reliability to the others?
Yeah, so that was one area where we got pretty excited about this opportunity. We have been running infrastructure for the last 4 years, and we kind of pride ourselves on our reliability and our ability to operate low latency infrastructure, and that's exactly what you need for a relay. And so, how do we stack up? I think there are a few sites out there that have some pretty good statistics. The last I saw, we were 99.9 something percent uptime, and I think we're 100% uptime in the last 7 or 14 days. And then we've done a lot of work on the latency side of things. We've really driven down our latency so that no matter where you are in the world, you can connect to our relay.
What is the average latency compared to, or that you would aim for?
I don't know if we have a specific internal target, but the last I saw was something like 300 and something milliseconds, which was pretty competitive with kind of the other relays.
Timing is very crucial, or latency is very crucial in the Ethereum blockchain, given that block inclusion is time-based. So if you are late on getting your block in, you can actually miss out on some rewards. So having a reliable relay is crucial to making sure that you as a validator are maximizing your potential rewards. You don't want to be in a position where you miss a block when it's your turn to be the proposer. You can end up missing Hail Mary blocks that way.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the areas that we have spent a lot of time and resources is on one of our newest products that we launched called TDN. And TDN is a way to submit transactions through all of our nodes in parallel at once, and so they propagate through the P2P network faster than just going through your own node or Infura or something like that. And the underlying technology of that, is based on sending messages faster than the peer-to-peer network. And so that underlying technology, we're going to start to repurpose that in all sorts of different ways, and all in the name of having the lowest latency possible for things like relaying the actual block data, or potentially even relaying the mempool events that our nodes see, and when we construct blocks to help relay transactions that are happening further away from our block builder to get it to our block builder as fast as possible, so that we can try and include that quickly into our block and create a more optimized block. And I think that's why we've been pretty competitive to date on just these non-MEV blocks, is because we have this pretty strong infrastructure to see the widest view possible of the mempool in a low latency manner, so that on the margin we're able to include transactions that are happening anywhere in the world a little bit better than some of the other relays or builders.
It's a really beautiful, in a way, efficiency problem that we have all these different parties trying to whittle down to create the best possible solution. So if any listeners have any questions for the Blocknative team, now would be a good time to raise your hand. My final question for you, Blair, is how does this relay and / block building play into Blocknative's overall business model? As I understand it, running a relay is not actually profitable. So any thoughts on that?
Yep. So I don't think that we consider the relay as like a direct profit maker. I think there's a little bit of altruism in running a relay at this time. So I think that's probably a wider question that that the ecosystem should answer. And then we view the relay as being kind of more helpful towards being a block builder. If you're just serving your own blocks on your own relay, you don't have to worry about things like rate limiting, like there is a rate limit on independent builders using the Flashbots relay. And so by having your own relay, you can kind of control your own destiny, so to speak. And so that's sort of the quote unquote business model of running a relay. So the business model for us is going to be more on block building. So we're actively evaluating how or if we can make money off of our builder, and whether that's making a margin off of blocks that we build. Or maybe there are other services and products that we can build based on having a good market share in this kind of MEV boost world. That might be a more medium to long term play, where as we establish ourselves and grow our market share, we can create other offerings that leverage that market share.
I will say, if Blocknative wants to maximize their potential to get proposals and create blocks, running rocket pool mini pools will actually leverage your ability to get proposals. Just FYI. But thank you, Blair, for being here and giving us a. Oh, did you want to say something? Sorry.
I was gonna say we'll look into that for sure.
Yeah. Especially after we've incorporated the low ETH bonded upgrade in Atlas. Depositing just 4, or the normal 32 ETH you deposit will actually give you access to 4 different validators worth of ETH. So for block builders, definitely, or people who want to do the entire stack in-house, definitely worth considering. But for our listening audience, if you are a validator, or if you are interested in the world of MEV, block building, block exploration, Blocknative is definitely where you want to be. Check out their website and follow along on their Twitter at, I'm not actually sure where your handles are, but Blocknative is doing great work with their relay, trying to diversify the ecosystem. So massive thanks from the Rocket Pool community. Final words?
Yeah, no, we really appreciate you guys having us on, and great questions. Obviously, like you guys were saying in the beginning, the Rocket Pool community is taking off and doing wonderful things. So, we at Blocknative pride ourselves on listening to the community at large and being a part of the conversation. And we definitely don't think we have all the answers. So it's one of these areas where we all need to kind of have the conversation out in the open, be transparent, and work together to ensure we do not fall into the TradFi MEV world.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to see high frequency trading firms running the Ethereum blockchain.
Well, very cool. Thanks for having me on.